Deep within the uncharted expanse of space, a faint pulse flickered through the vast darkness. The signal was barely perceptible, an echo from a distant past, yet imbued with a sense of urgent desperation. For years, human explorers had been cataloging the stars, yet this particular transmission was unlike anything recorded before. It bore the unmistakable signature of an ancient civilization, one long thought lost to the cosmos. Aboard the ISS Phalanx, Earth's deadliest fleet cruiser, the bridge hummed with activity as the signal's coordinates blinked on the command console. Captain Alara Kincaid stood tall and composed, her sharp eyes reflecting the holographic star map that floated in front of her. "Lieutenant Darnell, confirm the signal's origin and strength," she ordered, her voice calm but resolute. The young officer's fingers moved quickly across his console. "Signal detected near the Perseus sector, Captain. Strength is weak but consistent, likely from a system severely damaged or obscured. The pattern suggests a distress call, repeating over decades." Kincaid nodded thoughtfully. "Prepare a detailed report for command. This may be the call humanity has been waiting for." The Phalanx was not a ship for diplomatic missions or scientific exploration. It was designed for combat, for swift and decisive strikes against threats too dangerous for anything else to handle. The fleet's reputation preceded it, feared and sometimes reviled for its ruthless efficiency. Yet when this mysterious signal appeared, Earth's leaders had no choice but to trust the Phalanx to respond. As the crew prepared for the mission, tension crackled in the ship's corridors. Many among the fleet resented the political pressure to investigate what some dismissed as a fool's errand. The galaxy was vast, and the risk of falling into an unknown trap loomed large. But Captain Kincaid was unshaken. "This call is more than a plea for help," she told her senior officers in the strategy room. "It's a summons. We are the only ones prepared to answer it, and if we don't, no one will." Commander Rajesh Patel, her second in command, exchanged a look with her. "There are unknowns, Alara. The risks aren't just tactical. This could pull us into conflicts far beyond our capacity." Kincaid's gaze hardened. "We can't afford to wait. If we ignore this, countless lives could be lost, and humanity's future could be shaped by what we don't do now." The decision was made. The Phalanx would jump through the nearest wormhole and chart a course to the source of the signal. As the crew braced for transit, Alara took a moment to walk the ship's length. In the engine room, engineers worked tirelessly, maintaining the ship's formidable reactors. Soldiers trained relentlessly, preparing for battles they hoped to avoid but expected at any moment. In the ship's quiet moments, the weight of command pressed on Kincaid's shoulders. She was aware of the rumors. Whispered in the mess halls, stories about the Phalanx's past missions, about crews lost and horrors faced. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was the call for help, echoing across light years, reaching out to Earth's deadliest fleet. The jump came swiftly. Space blurred into streaks of light as the Phalanx slipped through the wormhole, emerging into an unfamiliar and desolate star system. The silence was oppressive. Sensors scanned the region, revealing planets scarred by devastation. Ruins of once great cities sprawled beneath toxic skies. The air was thick with the residue of battles long ended, but with no clear victor. "Captain, we're detecting faint life signs," reported Lieutenant Darnell. "Survivors, possibly?" Kincaid's expression steeled. "Send out a shuttle. Prepare for landing." As the shuttle descended onto the surface, a scene of desperation unfolded. Ragged survivors, members of an alien species known as the Siren, gathered amidst the wreckage. Their eyes, wide with hope and fear, locked onto the humans. The Siren leader, an elder named Vara, stepped forward. Her voice was weak, but carried a grave urgency. "You have come, just in time," she said. "The Voidborn consume all. They leave nothing but silence." Kincaid felt a chill. The Voidborn. The name had surfaced in old classified reports, a mysterious enemy thought to be a myth. "We will help you," Kincaid promised, "but we need to understand what we face." As the shuttle lifted away carrying survivors to the phalanx, the crew realized their mission had only just begun. The call for help was no mere echo. It was a summons to war, and Earth's deadliest fleet was the only force ready to answer. The phalanx cut through the dark expanse of space with unyielding purpose, carrying the fragile hopes of the Siren, survivors, and the weight of Earth's expectations. Captain Alara Kincaid stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the swirling star charts ahead. The ruined system stretched before them like a wound in the galaxy, each planet a scar of devastation. Lieutenant Darnell monitored the ship's sensors. "We're detecting heavy debris fields and residual energy signatures consistent with large-scale weapon discharges, Captain. The damage appears recent." "Any signs of who or what might have caused it?" Kincaid asked. "Still too faint to identify," Darnell replied. "But there's one more thing. The survivors reported a name, Voidborn. The word hung in the air, unsettling in its unfamiliarity. Commander Patel approached, his expression grim. "The Voidborn. Classified intel calls them a biomechanical scourge, part machine, part living organism. No one's seen them and lived to tell." Kincaid nodded. "Then it's no surprise the Siren sent a signal so desperate. We're walking into a war zone." The phalanx adjusted course, entering orbit around Siren's home planet, now a desolate world of cracked earth and toxic storms. The survivors aboard the ship told their stories, tales of cities consumed, fleets obliterated, and a darkness that seemed to corrupt everything it touched. Vera, the Siren leader, was summoned to the briefing room. Her eyes carried the weight of countless losses, but also a fierce determination. "We are broken, but not defeated," she said quietly. "The Voidborn strike without warning. They consume the light, leaving worlds as lifeless husks. We need your strength." Captain Kincaid regarded her carefully. "We will fight by your side. But first, we need to know more about your enemy, how they operate, their weaknesses, anything you can tell us." The survivors exchanged uncertain glances. One younger Siren stepped forward, a scout named Rin. His voice was steady as he described the horror of the Voidborn. "They come from the dark between stars, shifting like shadows. Their bodies are metal and flesh entwined, constantly changing. They adapt to every weapon we use. Our armies fall before them like grass before fire." The crew of the phalanx listened intently. Engineers began analyzing the fragments of Voidborn technology recovered from battlefields. Scientists worked to understand their biomechanical nature. Lieutenant Jin, the fleet's cybernetic specialist, tapped her fingers thoughtfully. "Their technology is unlike anything we've seen, but there's a pattern to their adaptation. It's evolutionary, but with a delay. If we can exploit that window, we might develop weapons that stay ahead of their changes." Kincaid nodded. "Good. Begin designing countermeasures immediately. This will not be a conventional battle." But as the days passed, it became clear the Voidborn were more than just a relentless enemy. They were a force that twisted reality itself. Sensors began detecting spatial anomalies, ripples in space-time caused by Voidborn presence. Suddenly, alarms blared across the phalanx. Voidborn scout ships, sleek and dark, pierced the system's edge. The fleet scrambled to battle stations. "Captain," Kincaid's voice was sharp. "All hands, prepare for combat. We engage on my command." The first volley of plasma beams streaked through space, striking the phalanx's shields. The crew responded with precision fire, targeting the Voidborns. Adaptive armor. The enemy shifted, mutating limbs into shields and weapons. The battle was fierce, pushing the phalanx to its limits, but humanity's fierce resolve and relentless tactics turned the tide. The Voidborn scouts retreated into the shadows. After The fight, Kincaid addressed her officers. This is just the beginning. The Voidborn are dangerous, adaptive, and merciless. But so are we. We will learn, evolve, and fight back. Commander Patel's voice was steady but cautious. We'll need the Sirens' cooperation if we're to have any hope. Our technology and their knowledge combined might give us the edge. Vara stepped forward. We will stand with you. The survival of our people, and yours, depends on it. That night, Kincaid stood on the observation deck, staring out into the swirling stars. The void ahead was dark and uncertain. But she felt something new, a flicker of hope. The call for help had echoed across the galaxy, and Earth's deadliest fleet had answered. What awaited them was unknown, but they would face it together. The war was only beginning. The Phalanx fleet moved like a shadow through the battered star system, its hulls glinting faintly under the light of distant suns. Captain Alara Kincaid stood on the bridge, tension sharpening every sense. The Voidborn were no longer a distant threat. They were hunting them, testing their defenses and probing for weaknesses. Sensors flared with intermittent readings as small Voidborn strike teams darted in and out of sensor range, their forms shifting unpredictably. The enemy's biomechanical nature meant every encounter was a new puzzle, a battle of adaptation and will. Lieutenant Jin leaned over her console, eyes narrowing at the chaotic data streams. They're learning, she said quietly. Every time we hit them, they change. Our weapons work for a moment, then become ineffective. Commander Rajesh Patel's brow furrowed. How do you fight an enemy that evolves faster than you? Can respond? Kincaid's jaw tightened. By being unpredictable, by using everything we have, and then some. Humans have a reputation for fighting dirty when cornered. We'll use that to our advantage. The fleet's engineers worked day and night, developing hybrid weapons designed to outpace the Voidborn's evolution. Plasma bursts combined with electromagnetic pulses, rapid-fire projectiles interlaced with nanotech disruptors. Each new weapon was tested under the relentless barrage of Voidborn assaults. The battles were brutal and unforgiving. On the barren moon of Cylon, a squadron of Phalanx fighters engaged a swarm of Voidborn scouts. The enemy twisted and reformed their mechanical bodies mid-flight, morphing armor into blades and wings into shields. Lieutenant Mara Jin piloted her fighter through the chaos, dodging plasma and energy tendrils. They're fast, but they're not invincible, she radioed. Focus fire on their core units. When they lose command, they fall apart. The fighters unleashed a coordinated strike. One Voidborn fell, then another, until the swarm shattered and fled. But the cost was high. Several fighters didn't return. Back aboard the Phalanx, the crew tended to their wounded and recalibrated their defenses. The enemy's relentless adaptability tested every ounce of humanity's resourcefulness and resolve. Vera, the Siren leader, met with Captain Kincaid in the ship's strategy room. "We have lost many worlds," she said grimly. "The Voidborn consume not only our planets but our spirits. Their shadow spreads like a plague." Kincaid met her gaze. "We will stop that. But to do so, we need to understand their origins. Why do they fight? What is their purpose?" Rin, the Siren scout, spoke up. "The Voidborn were once a civilization like ours, until a catastrophe turned them into this. They are the remnants of a star empire consumed by their own ambition, now cursed to spread their decay." The revelation was chilling. An enemy born from hubris and ruin, driven not by conquest but survival in the darkest way. That night, as the Phalanx sailed through the void, Kincaid reflected on the parallels between humanity and the Voidborn. Both were shaped by conflict, but one had chosen destruction, while the other fought to protect. The following days brought more fierce encounters. Voidborn dreadnoughts emerged, massive, writhing warships that seemed part organic creature, part starship. Their tentacles lashed out, tearing at the phalanx's formation. During one such battle, Captain Kincaid took personal command of the flagship's weapons. "Target the dreadnought's core," she ordered. "Concentrate fire and prepare boarding. Teams, we're ending this now." The phalanx unleashed a storm of missiles and energy blasts, hammering the dreadnought's hull. Despite the enemy's regenerative armor, cracks began to form. Boarding pods launched into the enemy ship's hull, cutting through twisted metal and organic tissue. Soldiers fought a grim fight through corridors that pulsed with alien life, searching for the command center. Inside, Kincaid's boarding team planted charges near the core. As they evacuated, the dreadnought exploded in a cascade of fire and debris, a brilliant flare against the starry background. Back on the phalanx, the crew celebrated the victory, but the shadow of war remained. "We've struck a blow, but the enemy adapts," Kincaid reminded her officers. "We must be faster, smarter, and stronger." The war against the Voidborn was no longer just a battle for survival. It was a test of humanity's ingenuity, courage, and unyielding spirit. And Captain Alara Kincaid was determined to lead the phalanx to victory, no matter the cost. The phalanx rested in orbit around the shattered world of Siren's home planet, its crew exhausted but resolute. The victory against the dreadnought was a turning point, but Captain Kincaid knew that brute force alone would not be enough. The war against the Voidborn was as much about alliance as it was about firepower. In the grand hall of the phalanx, the leaders of the surviving Siren clans gathered alongside the ship's senior officers. Tension filled the room like static electricity. Decades of war and loss had fractured the Siren people, turning potential allies into rivals. Mistrust was as thick as the scars on their cracked planet. Vara, the Siren elder, spoke first, her voice steady but tinged with fatigue. "Our people have survived through division. Now, unity is our only hope." Across the room, other Siren leaders exchanged skeptical glances. One called Darvok, a fierce warlord with deep scars marking his face, spoke sharply. "We have no love for Earth's warriors. Your phalanx brings power but also destruction. How do we know you are not like the Voidborn, taking what you need and leaving death in your wake?" Captain Kincaid stepped forward, her gaze steady. "The phalanx is a weapon forged in fire, yes, but we fight not for conquest, but for protection. We have answered your call for help because we believe all life is worth defending." Her words hung in the air. A silence followed as the Siren deliberated. Rin, the young scout who had become an ambassador of sorts between species, broke the silence. "I have traveled across the ravaged lands. I have seen the Voidborn consume our homes. If we do not unite, all will fall. Humans have technology and strength we lack. Together, we have a chance." Darvok's eyes narrowed, but he nodded reluctantly. "For now, we fight together. But know this, the Siren will not be pawns." The alliance was fragile but vital. With it came shared knowledge, Siren war tactics, hidden supply caches, and insights into the Voidborn's movements. In return, the phalanx provided advanced weaponry and strategic command. However, old wounds and cultural differences surfaced quickly. Communication gaps led to misunderstandings. The Siren's more fluid command structures clashed with the phalanx's rigid hierarchy. A small skirmish erupted when a Siren patrol ignored human orders, nearly leading to disaster. Captain Kincaid convened a series of joint training exercises designed not only to sharpen combat skills, but to build trust. Soldiers and pilots from both species trained side by side, learning to anticipate each other's tactics and rhythms. In one exercise, Lieutenant Mara Jin worked alongside a Siren warrior named Kira. Their initial wariness gave way to mutual respect as they faced simulated Voidborn attacks together. Kira admired Jin's quick thinking and unyielding spirit. Jin learned the subtle ways Kira could sense the enemy's movements. Outside the training halls, diplomacy advanced cautiously. Captain Kincaid met frequently with Vara and Darvok, navigating delicate negotiations. Each meeting balanced on a knife's edge, with suspicion and hope intertwined. "We fight a common enemy," Vara reminded the council. "But we must also protect our cultures and values. Humanity's ways are different from ours, but that does not make them wrong." Kincaid agreed. "Our goal is survival and peace, not domination. The Phalanx's power is a shield, not a sword to impose will." Over time, small victories strengthened the Alliance's foundation. Combined patrols thwarted void-born raids, and shared intelligence uncovered supply lines vital to the enemy's strength. One evening, as the Phalanx's crew gathered in the mess hall, a rare moment of levity brought humans and Siren together. Stories were exchanged, tales of lost worlds, remembered heroes, and dreams of a future free from war. Laughter echoed through the halls, a fragile but precious sign of unity. Yet even as bonds grew, the threat of the Voidborn loomed larger. New intelligence revealed the enemy's plans to strike deeper into the star system, targeting a hidden research station vital to both humans and Siren. Captain Kincaid gathered her officers. "This station holds our hope for new technology to counter the Voidborn's adaptations. If it falls, we lose more than weapons. We lose the future." Vara's voice was resolute. "Then we defend it with all we have. The Phalanx and Siren." Forces prepared for a decisive battle. They were no longer separate peoples, but an alliance forged in necessity and strengthened by trust. As the stars outside flickered, a new hope took root amidst the ruins. Together, they would stand against the void. The Phalanx cut a steady course toward the volatile corona of the dying star Erithos, where the hidden research station was nestled amidst swirling plasma storms. This was no ordinary mission. Defending the station meant venturing into the heart of chaos, where starborn tempests battered even the most advanced shields. Captain Alara Kincaid stood on the bridge, watching the brilliant, violent dance of solar flares through the reinforced viewports. The station, codenamed Helios, was humanity's last hope for developing weapons and defenses that could keep pace with the Voidborn's terrifying adaptability. "Sensor readings indicate the plasma storm is intensifying," Lieutenant Darnell reported. "Our shields will be under constant strain. Enemy ships detected on long-range sensors. They're moving in fast." Kincaid's jaw tightened. "Prepare for engagement. We hold this position at all costs. No retreat. Commander." Patel briefed the joint Siren and human fleet. "The Voidborn know the importance of Helios. Their attacks will be relentless and unpredictable. Stay sharp and support the station's defenses." The Phalanx's advanced weapons systems hummed with energy, charged to full capacity. Siren warships, their hulls gleaming with organic patterns, formed a protective screen around the station. Soldiers and scientists aboard Helios worked tirelessly, reinforcing the station's structural integrity and preparing countermeasures. As the fleet entered the Corona's unstable orbit, the storm surged with sudden, blinding intensity. Solar flares licked the void, their raw power threatening to tear the fleet apart. Suddenly, the silence shattered. Void-born dreadnoughts emerged like shadows from the plasma clouds, massive, writhing constructs that seemed alive, their metallic tentacles reaching out like the fingers of a cosmic nightmare. "Enemy fleet approaching on Vector 060, Lieutenant Darnell warned. "They're coordinating their attack patterns, adapting to our formations." Captain Kincaid's voice rang clear through the ship's comms. "All ships, focus fire on the lead dreadnought. Disrupt their command link." Energy beams lanced across space, colliding with the enemy's armor. The dreadnought twisted and morphed, its defenses shifting rapidly, but the phalanx's combined firepower pushed through, crippling its systems. Amidst the chaos, boarding pods launched toward the damaged dreadnought, carrying elite strike teams. Among them, Captain Kincaid led a small force, determined to end the threat from within. Inside the enemy vessel, the boarding party moved cautiously through corridors pulsating with alien life and shifting metal. The air thrummed with a low mechanical growl as the Voidborn attempted to regenerate and resist. Kincaid's team placed demolition charges near the core reactor, preparing to detonate and cripple the dreadnought. As alarms blared, they retreated to the pods just before a massive explosion rocked the ship. Back on the phalanx, the destruction of the dreadnought lifted morale. But the battle was far from over. The Voidborn unleashed swarms of smaller attack craft, darting through plasma lightning and solar winds. The phalanx and its allies responded with fierce determination, weaving through the storm, their weapons blazing. Lieutenant Mara Jin piloted a fighter through the storm's chaos, dodging flares and enemy fire. "These storms are a weapon of the star itself," she radioed. "We need to use the environment, not fight against it." Kincaid ordered the fleet to adapt, using the solar flares as cover and weapons. Coordinated maneuvers turned the storm's fury against the Voidborn, fracturing their formations and forcing retreats. In the calm after the storm, Helios's scientists reported critical progress. The station's new weapons, incorporating human ingenuity and siren biotech, showed promise against the Voidborn's regenerative armor. Vara, standing beside Kincaid on the observation deck, allowed herself a rare moment of optimism. "We have faced the heart of the storm and survived." Kincaid nodded. "The Voidborn are fierce but not invincible. This battle has shown us that unity and adaptation can turn even the deadliest tides. Yet beneath the hope lay a quiet warning. The Voidborn's capacity to evolve meant the war was far from over. The Corona had tested them all, but the challenges ahead would demand even greater courage and innovation. As the Phalanx and its allies prepared to leave the storm's deadly embrace, the stars beyond held both danger and promise. The war had entered a new phase, one where survival depended on the ability to change and endure, and Captain Alara Kincaid was ready to lead humanity through whatever darkness awaited. After the harrowing defense of Helios, the Phalanx fleet retreated to a nearby system for repairs and regrouping. The calm was short-lived. Intelligence reports revealed a startling discovery. Ancient ruins buried beneath the surface of a long-forgotten planet, rumored to hold secrets about the origins of the Voidborn. Captain Alara Kincaid stood before her command team, the holographic map flickering above the strategy table. This planet, designated Arendor, lies at the edge of Voidborn-controlled space. If the ruins contain knowledge about their creation, it could change everything. Commander Patel nodded thoughtfully. Understanding our enemy is crucial, but Arendor is remote, and the Voidborn won't let anyone approach freely. Vara, the Siren leader, leaned in. Our scouts have located a safe landing zone, but the ruins are ancient, guarded not just by the Voidborn, but by defenses left by those who came before. Lieutenant Jin tapped the map. If we can unlock the technology hidden there, we might develop weapons that outpace the Voidborn's adaptation. The fleet set course for Arendor, a planet cloaked in storms and shadow. As they entered orbit, the crew glimpsed vast structures rising from the planet's surface. Monolithic towers etched with alien symbols, half swallowed by the wild landscape. Captain Kincaid assembled an expedition team composed of human soldiers, siren warriors, scientists, and engineers. The mission: explore the ruins, uncover their secrets, and return with anything that might turn the tide of war. Touching down on Arendor's rugged surface, the team moved cautiously through dense forests and jagged cliffs. The air was thick with a strange energy, a resonance that seemed to hum beneath their feet. Deep within the ruins, they found evidence of a civilization that had once rivaled the stars. Vast libraries of data crystals, dormant machines, and cryptic messages carved into stone. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the chief archaeologist, studied the inscriptions carefully. These texts speak of an ancient war long before ours. They describe a race consumed by their own technology, creatures fused with machines, losing their humanity in the process. Vara's eyes darkened. The Voidborn's curse is not new. They are echoes of this forgotten catastrophe. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Sensors detected movement. Voidborn patrols had found them. The team raced back to their landing zone, fighting off relentless waves of Voidborn drones. The battle was fierce, forcing Captain Kincaid to call in support from the Phalanx fleet above. In the chaos, the scientists secured a vital discovery, a fragment of Voidborn technology unlike any seen before. Its patterns hinted at a central intelligence, a core that controlled their ever-shifting forms. Lieutenant Jin examined the fragment aboard the Phalanx. This is a piece of their neural network. If we can decode it, we might disrupt their coordination. But the risks were high. Tampering with alien technology of such complexity could have unforeseen consequences. As the fleet prepared to withdraw from Arendor, Kincaid reflected on the lessons of the ruins. The Voidborn were not just an enemy. They were a warning of what unchecked ambition could become. Back on the Phalanx, tensions simmered between the Alliance members. The Siren warlord Darvok questioned the heavy losses and the increasing reliance on technology. "Are we becoming what we fight against?" he asked during a heated council meeting. Kincaid met his gaze steadily. "We fight for survival and for our future, but we must never lose sight of who we are. Our strength comes not just from weapons, but from our unity and our humanity." The fleet's scientists accelerated their work, using the ruins' data to develop new strategies. Slowly, breakthroughs emerged, methods to interfere with the Voidborn's adaptive processes, giving humanity a critical edge. Yet even as hope grew, the Voidborn's shadow loomed larger. New intelligence indicated they were mobilizing for a massive assault, one that could decide the fate of the entire star system. Captain Kincaid prepared her fleet, knowing that the next battle would test everything they had learned. The echoes of the past had spoken, and the future depended on listening. The tension aboard the Phalanx was palpable. The fleet, once ragged and scattered, had been forged into a disciplined, united force. Yet, no amount of preparation could erase the uncertainty that gripped Captain Alara Kincaid's mind. Intelligence confirmed what they all feared. The Voidborn were massing for a decisive assault on the core human and Siren stronghold system, a final gambit that could crush the fragile alliance or break their enemies forever. Enemy fleet approaching. "Enforce Vector 090, Lieutenant Darnell reported, eyes flicking rapidly over the sensor readouts. The screen displayed hundreds of Voidborn vessels, their shapes shifting and writhing like a living storm. Kincaid exhaled slowly and looked around at her officers. "This is it. We hold the line here. We fight for every star, every life." "Commander," Patel nodded. "The new countermeasures are ready. We'll strike their neural cores and disrupt their coordination." Vara stood beside Kincaid, her usual calm now edged with grim determination. "For the Siren, for our shared future." The combined fleet spread out in a defensive formation near the system's largest planet, the last bastion of human Siren, civilization. The Phalanx was at the center, its massive frame bristling with weapons and shield generators. As the Voidborn approached, the space around the fleet grew electric with anticipation and dread. The enemy unleashed their first wave, swarms of agile, morphing fighters designed to overwhelm defenses. Lieutenant Mara Jin piloted a fighter squadron, weaving through bursts of plasma and energy tendrils. "Focus fire on their command units," Cut off their orders! The battle erupted in a furious symphony of destruction, explosions blooming like deadly flowers across the void. The Phalanx and Siren vessels countered with relentless firepower, targeting the neural hubs discovered in the ruins of Arendor. Suddenly, the Void-born flagship, a gargantuan entity that pulsed with dark energy, emerged from the mass. Its presence warped the very space around it, radiating a malevolent intelligence. Captain Kincaid directed her forces, focusing every weapon on the flagship's core. "Concentrate fire! We must break their command structure." The flagship responded by launching a barrage of tendrils and biomechanical projectiles, slamming into the fleet's outer defenses. The Phalanx shuddered under the assault, but the crew held firm. Kincaid realized that brute force alone wouldn't win this battle. "Deploy the experimental disruptor drones," she ordered. "Send them to the flagship's core." A squadron of sleek drones launched from the Phalanx, darting through enemy fire toward the heart of the Void-born flagship. Each carried a payload, designed to scramble the neural network controlling the enemy. Inside the flagship, the drones infiltrated its pulsating core, sending shockwaves through the Void-born's collective consciousness. The enemy's coordinated assault faltered, their ships breaking formation and becoming vulnerable. Seizing the moment, the fleet launched a massive counterattack. Energy beams and missiles tore through the chaos, dismantling the Void-born's offensive. Amid the chaos, Captain Kincaid led a boarding party in a daring strike on the flagship's bridge. Fighting through twisting corridors alive with writhing metal and flesh, they confronted the Void-born Central Intelligence, a colossal fusion of machinery and organic matter, pulsing with raw power. Kincaid raised her weapon, voice steady. "This ends now." The battle inside the flagship was brutal, a clash of wills and technology. The boarding team disabled the core processors, unraveling the enemy's control network. Outside, the flagship convulsed and exploded in a brilliant supernova of energy, its remnants scattering into the void. With the flagship destroyed, the remaining Void-born vessels scattered, retreating into the dark. The fleet held its ground, battered but victorious. On the bridge of the Phalanx, Kincaid allowed herself a moment of relief. Around her, the crew shared weary but triumphant smiles. The Alliance had survived the deadliest storm. Vera approached, placing a hand on Kincaid's shoulder. "Today, we forged a new destiny. Together." Kincaid nodded. "This is only the beginning. We will rebuild, strengthen, and prepare. The stars belong to those willing to fight for them." As the fleet turned toward home, the vastness of space seemed less ominous, filled instead with the promise of hope and renewal. The call for help had echoed across the void, and Earth's deadliest fleet had answered, not just with firepower, but with unity, courage, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. The shattered remnants of the Void-born fleet drifted into the shadows, broken and leaderless. For the first time in countless cycles, the war that had stretched across star systems showed signs of ending. Yet Captain Alara Kincaid and her allies knew the true battle was only beginning, the battle to build a future from the ashes of conflict. The Phalanx cruised steadily toward Earth, its hull scarred but its crew unbowed. On board, the atmosphere was a mixture of exhaustion and cautious optimism. The alliance forged in the fires of battle had held strong, and the seeds of peace were beginning to take root. In the Grand Conference Chamber, representatives from humanity and the Siren clans gathered once more. The air was thick with anticipation, a stark contrast to the tension and suspicion of earlier meetings. Vara, the elder Siren leader, spoke with quiet authority. "We have faced darkness beyond imagining, yet together we have endured. The path ahead will not be easy, but unity must be our foundation." Captain Kincaid stepped forward, her voice steady and filled with resolve. The void-born threat was a crucible that tested us all. It revealed our strengths and exposed our weaknesses. Now, we must rebuild not only our worlds, but our trust in one another. The Council agreed to establish a Joint Alliance Council, an unprecedented coalition that would oversee defense, technology sharing, and cultural exchange. It was a bold step toward a future where former enemies stood side by side as partners. Meanwhile, deep within the Phalanx's research labs, scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to integrate the recovered void-born technology with human and Siren innovations. The result was a new generation of starships, sleek, adaptable, and equipped to anticipate threats in ways never before imagined. Lieutenant Mara Jin, now a seasoned pilot and leader, tested one of the prototype fighters. She marveled at its responsiveness, a perfect blend of human ingenuity and Siren bioengineering. "This is more than survival," she said. "It's evolution." But the scars of war ran deep. Families mourned, lost loved ones, planets struggled to recover, and the psychological toll of endless conflict weighed heavily on all. To heal, the Alliance launched an ambitious program of restoration, sending aid, rebuilding infrastructure, and fostering cultural exchange programs to bridge the divides. Kincaid made a personal visit to Siren settlements, walking among the people who had endured so much. She saw in their eyes a fierce resilience, a determination to reclaim their identity without losing the bonds forged in battle. One evening, beneath twin moons shimmering over a peaceful valley, Kincaid and Vara shared a quiet moment of reflection. "We have traveled far," Vara said softly. "From enemies to allies, from fear to hope." Kincaid nodded. "The war changed us, but it did not define us. We write our own destiny now." As the Phalanx entered Earth's orbit, the crew looked out at the blue planet with renewed purpose. Earth was no longer isolated or vulnerable. It was the heart of a new alliance, a beacon in the vastness of space. The stars beyond whispered of endless possibilities, of unexplored worlds and untold stories. The horrors of the Voidborn had been met with courage, unity, and an unyielding will to survive. And as dawn broke over Earth's horizon, Captain Kincaid knew this was more than an end. It was the beginning of an era where humanity and its allies would reach ever higher, shaping the galaxy not through fear or domination, but through hope, strength, and the shared light of countless worlds. The call for help had echoed through the void, and this time, the answer had changed everything.